Strength not enough.
Hello everybody and welcome to Amphlett Reviews, back with a Hong Kong content review, diving more into Shaw Brothers and this sort of very unintentional but very highly enjoyable and entertaining Kar-leung marathon I'm currently doing, going through some of the editions that I've got from the Shaw Brothers Vol.1, 2, some of the 88 film editions, and trying to track down the ones that are currently missing or the ones I don't have access to. And this director is an absolute phenomenal, staple in Shaw Brothers, and an all-around brilliant director that is delivering really high-quality movies with this brilliant team. Delivering great cinematography, a great kind of comedy, the choreography, the set locations, the storylines, alongside many recurring returning actors that he collaborates with throughout these various kind of movies. And I'm really enjoying what I'm seeing so far from this director. And this film is no exception for that. This is The Heroes of the East, released in 1978, directed by Kar-leung, as mentioned, same year as The 36 Chambers of Shaolin. So a very hot ticket, very hot year for both Gordon Liu, which also stars in this film, and the director, just really pumping out these really extraordinary films, really kick-ass movies through the backing of Shaw Brothers. And this is on the Volume 1 box set, very appropriately paired with Dirty Ho, which I reviewed previously on the channel, which comes as a one disc. Both very similar kind of movies in the sense of its kind of style and comedy, and also its martial arts fighting and forms work, which I do really appreciate. This film, going straight into it, is an absolute blast. I actually had a really, really fun time watching this. Very entertaining, very fun, very kind of, high energy film. That delivers a lot more than, again, I expected to see. Gordon Liu is just really great in this film. It's really weird to see him with hair. Clearly there has to be a wig, surely, but it's very strange, very odd for me to see him with hair. It's very distracting overall in the film, but apart from that, he's great in this film. Again, he's playing somewhere in between kind of Dirty Ho and these traditional kind of roles that I've seen him play up to this point. On the storyline for this film is basically kind of two movies, essentially. You've got the first portion, which is a kind of a Mr. and Mrs. Smith meets kind of like The Odd Couple kind of movie for the first kind of 45 minutes. Essentially, you've got an arranged marriage, arranged from very early on, and they get married, and basically it's a crash of cultures and traditions and honor, and basically that kind of I am better than you kind of camaraderie that evolves and kind of changes into this kind of mutual respect for kind of like the community of martial arts and the kind of the forms work and the skills, the time, the kind of camaraderie that goes into these kind of skill sets. And doesn't matter what kind of, culture you're from, you're going to be very passionate about. The wife, which is a Japanese, someone who, is very kind of, passionate about her culture, about her kung fu, about her skill sets, and she's demonstrating that throughout the kind of the house and the kind of the servants kind of thing. And you've got Gordon Liu's character, which is a very highly regarded kind of upcoming kind of martial artist who is doing traditional kind of Chinese kind of kung fu, and they're challenging each other's skill sets, and they have a kind of a culture clash as the film goes along. They're kind of testing each other's kind of skill sets through various different forms with kind of traditional kind of fighting and weaponry and kind of, the ninja stuff that comes into it later on, which is quite cool, showing the different types of weaponry they both have. And it's interesting because the film presents this stuff in the first kind of portion of the film as a kind of a odd couple back and forth kind of banter. It's very light, it's very fun, it's fluffy, very charming. The wife, the person who plays the wife in the film, can't quite pronounce her name, didn't do many kind of films after that. She did one or two movies. I think the idea of the film is that she's a real life kind of expert in her field, and essentially they introduce them as the film goes along. Every time they come up into the first time appearance, they show who their name, what their skill set is, into kind of actors essentially for the film, and it works quite well. I mean, I thought their performances were quite good. I thought they did a good job of playing what the film requires and giving enough range as well for Gordon Liu to kind of bounce off of, which is a more traditional kind of actor. I love their chemistry. I love their kind of, she's got this kind of very kind of innocent, kind of very aura about her, essentially. I love how honest she is and how kind of happy and fun. She's kind of almost kind of savage a little bit. Some of the kind of the light humor just play into that kind of first kind of little portion of the film with some of the kind of savage comments and kind of, the taunts and the back and forth. She's delivering to Gordon Liu, which I think is just really funny. Their kind of comebacks are really good as well. especially when it comes down to some of the kind of the light fighting, which is kind of playful kind of banter. They kind of have a bit of a spat, a bit of a kind of a argument as the film goes along in that first kind of, portion of it, where basically she goes back to Japan. She wants to learn the rest of her kind of training, complete the rest of her training, and then maybe go back, but she's not too sure because the culture clash is a bit too great. And through this, he makes a very silly mistake of basically drunkenly sending her a letter of a challenge letter, to his wife, and then this takes very personally with her kind of sensei or kind of the masters that she's kind of been involved with, and they all go to basically Hong Kong to basically challenge him one by one through various different kind of forms and very different kind of skill sets, and he has to kind of challenge him day by day. And that's the last hour of the film, is essentially his taking on one by one, figuring out what he can learn, what he can do to basically honor for himself. Is basically China versus Japan, and a much more of a competitive, good spirit, non-vengeance, non-violent kind of camaraderie, essentially. That's one of the things I think is quite interesting about it. It's not a one that I've seen up to this point. It's one of the rare examples that I've seen up to this point in terms of a China versus Japan movie where it's actually kind of friendly. There is some taunts, there is some kind of, harsh kind of words maybe spoken, but it's all done in a kind of a competition friendly kind of honor, respect kind of manner, and essentially. And there's a couple of points in the film which I quite appreciate, the idea of with when he has that scene with with the samurai, and he kind of heals and puts his sword out. He doesn't understand it, he's just still on guard, and that's a highly disrespectful action, but he doesn't know that kind of thing, and he gets taught that later on. And I like that. It's this kind of community kind of spirit, but done in a friendly kind of manner. And maybe it's a little bit biased in that regard. I'm not too sure about what the intention was, because obviously this is a Hong Kong movie featuring Japanese actors, performers coming into this film. And it's interesting on the Volume 1 box set where Gordon talks about the film. Usually within a lot of Hong Kong movies I've seen, they are not happy with Japan, especially a lot of that kind of, the particularly villains. They're basically the bad guys, or or the British are the bad guys, essentially. It's one of the two that I've seen in the common kind of appearance, essentially, especially within the IP Man movies. Duel to the Death is another one. New Fist of Fury, and definitely within Fist of Legends with Jet Li. Them being real nasty, but depending on what the subject matter is, depending on what your film is trying to go for, and what your aim is, essentially. I guess, and most of the time, Japanese are portrayed as very nasty, very ruthless bad guys, and we have our kind of traditional kind of hero character to take them on, essentially. And the entertainment factor of it is phenomenal. The action, the fight sequences, the foreign weapon work is absolutely phenomenal. I love the fact that the first 45 minutes of the banter with his wife is essentially the setup of the last hour. We're showing some of the weaponry and kind of what he can do, and this is why most of the kind of the talking and kind of setup within kind of why he's so passionate about Chinese kind of history with the sword, and the idea of kind of like, oh, your sword's just garbage, mine's like, proper steel, and it's like, there is honor and respect. There is this kind of, like, I'm going to demonstrate why these things are important to me and why my skill sets are the way, the high caliber, the way they are. And I really like that, this idea, and I like the fact he's kind of approaching each kind of component very differently. I love the fact they introduced the drunken boxing with the director actually playing a small little cameo. I always love to see drunken boxing in a film. It brings me great joy to see different performers, different actors take on drunken master. Essentially, drunken boxing gets style of fighting. I've seen now with Jai Lee and Jackie Chan and many others kind of thing, which is always a delight to see. And now I get to see Gordon Liu do it, his take on a drunken kind of boxing style kind of fight, which is brilliant. All of it building up to some great fight scenes, one after the other. It gets a bit crazy, a bit bonkers towards the end, which is great. It's very high energy, high spirit, beautifully shot, very minuscule edits overall throughout the film. Very highly entertaining from start to finish, for sure, to say the least. I wouldn't have minded an extra 5 or 10 minutes just to kind of give that kind of cap, that kind of resolution between Gordon Liu and his Japanese wife. I think that would have been nice to kind of see where they stand as a kind of couple, as a man and wife, and just kind of see what that experience has kind of led them to, kind of thing, essentially. They sort of do have a makeup, or they kind of forgive each other towards the end of the second act, go into the third act, but she's not really around much. She doesn't witness the final fight. She doesn't really have much of a comment or much to say, apart from just kind of assisting him a little bit throughout these different kind of challenges. There's no more final kind of conclusion with those two people. You know, are they in a good place now? Are they, you know, does she understand more? Does he understand more? You know, he has that great speech at the end, but I would like to send just a little bit more, just to kind of cap off that kind of first 45 minutes and to kind of, you know, add on that kind of chemistry, added on a very nice kind of note. But it's very traditional, like kind of Shaw Brothers movies. Once the final fight has happened, the film just ends. So I'm not surprised by that, but I like to send just a little bit more added on to the end. But apart from that, the film is an absolute blast from start to finish. Highly enjoyable first 45 minutes. Very kind of odd couple, got a light bit of comedy, bit of fluff that kind of establishes the kind of the lore and establishes the kind of the characters, their kind of their passion for each side between Japanese kind of martial arts and Chinese martial arts, establishing some of the weaponry and some of the kind of the forms of martial arts play that plays really heavily into the last hour, which is really highly entertaining, really fun through various different components and adversaries to come up against. Gordon Liu's great. You got drunken boxing in the film, which is great as well. Highly entertaining, highly fun. Highly recommend, guys. So what are your recommendations? Please comment down below. In the meantime, guys, Amphlett Reviews, signing out.